Wait, what about our borough attorney?
It's fine, we have a affordable housing attorney.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Have the affordable housing attorney, we're okay.
We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's call this meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise wherever you may be. Find the flag.
Allegiance.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Allison, sunshine law notice. This is the January 22nd, 2025 special meeting of the mayor and council of the Borough of Fairhaven. This meeting is via Zoom only, broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey, and was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. It's a great act, the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the public, the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Rumson Fairhaven Patch on January 8th, 2025. It has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and through the borough's social media platforms and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. In addition, copies of the above notices are and have been available to the public and are on file in the office of the municipal clerk. With adequate notice having been given, the borough clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole,
Yes.
Kelly. See you, Michael. Chloe.
Yes.
Josh. You're on mute, Betsy.
Yes,
Lavera,
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't unmute it. I'm here.
Present.
Olson.
Here.
We have Administrator York, Bill Olson, who's our co-counsel, Kendra Wheelie, and Joe Muley. He's our municipal housing liaison.
Thank you. We are here to discuss Resolution 2025-40, approve and commit to Round 4 affordable housing present or prospective need obligations. Chris, who are we turning this over to right now?
So we're going to turn it over to our affordable housing attorney, Bill Olson.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So to start, the first question I always ask is, is everybody familiar with the Mount Laurel doctrine, or do you want me to kind of give you as quick a history as I can on the doctrine itself?
For a matter of record, I think it's probably good to give a quick overview just so everybody online is aware.
Perfect. So, yeah, so basically the Mount Laurel doctrine is the court-founded doctrine which mandates that municipalities have an affirmative obligation through their zoning to generate their fair share of affordable housing. It all started from a Supreme Court case that was decided in 1975 involving Township of Mount Laurel, wherein that the court held that the municipality was unable to use their zoning powers to basically not allow low and moderate income households to reside within the municipality. For an 8-year stretch following the 1975 decision, there was basically 3 camps of municipalities. There were municipalities who basically actively avoided the decision, so they didn't agree with it. There were municipalities who didn't do anything because they were unsure how to comply or what the decision meant. And then there were municipalities that basically sought to construct low and moderate income housing. As a result of the kind of the indecision and kind of misunderstanding or not understanding the decision, in 1983, the Supreme Court decided Mount Laurel 2, in which case they gave teeth to the doctrine and allowing what's called the builder's remedy lawsuit. So a builder's remedy is basically a developer can sue a municipality that is not compliant with its Mount Laurel obligations. And it has to show a few things. It has to show the municipality is 1, not compliant, 2, does not have creditworthy units, and 3 is not seeking to voluntarily comply with its obligations. In that scenario, basically the developer so long as they produce a number of affordable housing with the units that they are seeking to construct, can get approval from the court and circumvent the planning and zoning process of a municipality to get their housing project. Following the Supreme Court's decision in Mount Laurel 2, it resulted in over 100 builders' remedy lawsuits being filed with the court against various municipalities, and that prompted the legislature to adopt what's called the Fair Housing Act in 1985. In 1985, the Fair Housing Act created what's called the Council on what was the Council on Affordable Housing. In essence, they were the administrative agency that was tasked with overseeing a municipality's compliance. It allowed municipalities to comply voluntarily and receive what's called, immunity from builders' remedy lawsuits for a period of time. The Council on Affordable Housing adopted their first regulations in 1987 and then adopted a second round regulations in 1993. From 1985 until about 1999, COA, was an effective agency in adopting the regulations and in overseeing a municipality's ability to voluntarily comply with its affordable housing obligations. Beginning in 1999, COA attempted to adopt round 3 rules. They adopted rules in 2004. The court struck down those rules. They adopted a second round of third round rules in 2007. The court struck down those rules as well. Following that, there was a fairly lengthy period of time, about 5 or 6 years, between their attempts to adopt regulations. Finally, the Fair Share Housing Center filed a motion with the Supreme Court saying that COA is basically not functioning. COA was unable to adopt another set of third round rules. And the Supreme Court in 2015 adopted what is colloquially known as Mount Laurel 4, which basically said that COA was no longer a functioning agency and transferred all of their operations for voluntary compliance with the court for round 3. So round 1 was from 1987 to 1993. Round 2 was from 1993 to 1999. Round 3 was from 1999 until 2025 and is due to expire on July 1st of this year. As we move towards round 4, I apologize. As we move towards round 4, there was questions as to how round 4 was going to be, kind of proceeding. The legislature introduced a bill colloquially known as A4, which radically revamped the Fair Housing Act. I can tell you was that our office, participated vigorously in seeking to either oppose or change the bill and some of its, its terms. Eventually the legislature adopted a modified version of the bill, which was signed by Governor Murphy on March 20th of 2024. And that completely and totally revamped how municipalities can comply voluntarily with their affordable housing processes. So they eliminated the Council on Affordable Housing. They transferred their duties to the Department of Community Affairs, to the Housing Mortgage and Finance Agency, and finally what was called the program, which is under the Administrative Office of the Courts. The processes that start for round 4 were also pushed up, and so starting by January 31st of 2025, a municipality has to adopt what is called a binding resolution. A binding resolution, in essence, is what a municipality thinks its round 4 affordable housing obligation is going to be. And so in adopting that deadline, they also adopted the formula for determining what a round 4 obligation would be by adopting the Judge Jacobson opinion, which was an opinion in round 3, which basically analyzed and calculated a way for municipalities to have their obligations calculated for round 3. They pushed it into round 4. And so there's 3 different ways that the municipalities obligation is calculated. First is the land capacity factor, which is in essence what the developable area in terms of acreage is in a municipality. There's the non-residential valuation factor, or what we call ratables. Basically, what the entirety of the non-residential property tax values are in the region are then kind of calculated against a specific municipalities. That's done using property tax data. And then finally, there is the income capacity factor, which uses the census data to determine what the income is for each municipality. And so generally in looking at those three particular sets of data, the second two, the non-residential valuation factor and the income factor are kind of a set number, objective numbers and data. So it's pretty hard to challenge those two or kind of to look at those two to see if they were incorrect. And then the third one is the land capacity factor. And so the land capacity factor, could vary from person to person, or an expert to expert. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Department of Community Affairs released a report on October 18th of 2024, which calculated what it determined each municipality's obligation to be. That number is not binding, so a municipality could either accept or reject it. And in looking at the Borough of Fairhaven's data sets and the land capacity factor, the DCA determined that the borough had 0.847 acres of developable land and gave it a land capacity factor that was fairly low from our perspective. It was 0.15%. So if the borough even were interested in challenging it, it would have a minimal effect as to what the DCA's number for the borough would have been, which is 92 units. And so I think
Hey, William, real quick, buddy. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's a lot of information. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you just reiterate what you just said, right? Because I heard binding and non-binding.
Yeah.
Then I heard, the October letter where we really don't have any land left to develop. And then I heard 92 units isn't binding. So can you just rewind?
Sure. So there's the binding resolution, which is what a municipality basically has to commit as their number for round 4. So basically the municipality determines, I think our round 4 obligation is, a municipal 92 units in this case from the DC.
Right.
I think
And
it's
that's
92
resolution, and that's resolution 2025-40. That is that commitment that we're making. The way you make a
Exactly.
commitment is through a formal adopted resolution.
Exactly. And so the municipality can select, what that number is or what that number isn't. The DCA, pursuant to the new Fair Housing Act, was tasked with calculating what it thought each municipality's obligations to be. But the municipality did not have to accept that number. It could have chosen a different number if it looked at the data the DCA used and determined that, the number was either, off by, a certain percentage or a certain number of units. But in the borough's case, at least from our review, it already determined that the borough has a fairly low amount of developable land. And so it would be difficult to challenge. And if it would challenge, it would be a very small amount of difference between 92 units and whatever that number would be.
But
Got it.
maybe this is a good time to ask about because there's some conditional language in the resolution that talks about these processes for adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Maybe
and so
Kendra can take that.
exactly, and yes, so
kinda.
yeah, this is with the way COA in their regulations envision compliance. A municipality could either address its entire obligation, or there are situations where a municipality is unable to address their entire obligations. And so the two main ones are a vacant land analysis. In essence, the municipality doesn't have enough vacant land to be able to address its obligation in its entirety. And then there's the durational adjustment, which is that the municipality lacks sufficient water or sewer or both to be able to address their entire obligation. When the borough voluntarily complied in round 3, it's obtained a vacant land adjustment, and it received what a realistic development potential, or basically the number it could address, to be 4 units. And so it obtained a judgment of compliance and repose with 4 units as the number that it could address at the time. And the remainder of the units, move into what's called the unmet need. There are certain factors and issues that come up, especially as we move closer to June, as to how the borough is going to have to address the unmet need. But it is not, an obligation that they have to address immediately in terms of finding, the number of units that number is.
And William, just before we shift to Kendra, so I'm looking at the last page, number 2. and it says, the mayor and council hereby commit to the DCA round 4 present need obligation of 0 and the round 4 prospective need obligation of 92. Can you just, so the reason my question is like, I'm confused in that, right? So we have 4, but there's a present need obligation of 0, but a prospective need of 92. Like, it sounds like
Yeah,
like a spectrum.
Yeah, there's two different obligations a municipality has to address. The first one is called the present need or the rehabilitation obligation. In essence, that's already existing units within the municipality that are in need of repair or some type of work. And in, in this case for the borough, it's 0. The DCA determined that the number of housing units that are in, need of rehabilitation are 0 units. And then there's this prospective need, and that's the need that the borough would have to address, within round 4, what its round 4 number would be to address that. That's a prospective need. In essence, it's looking forward as to the amount of units it would need.
Okay, copy that. And last question, the current 4 units that exist as a byproduct of round 3, how much detail needs to be included in here to demonstrate those 4?
So in round 3, I believe the borough addressed all 4 of them. I can tell you right now, I have your judgment up. So
yeah, no doubt. My question is how much of that do we cite in this resolution?
you don't have to cite I think that at all. That's more of the planning process. So this is just kind of the first step. It's what your number is. And then after this, the next deadline is going to be February 28th, where an interested party or the Fair Share Housing Center, which is kind of the main housing advocate in New Jersey, can file an objection to your number. Since you're choosing the DCA number, I don't anticipate anybody coming in and seeking the number. I don't know if Kendra would disagree with me generally, but I don't think anybody would seek to challenge the DCA number. However, it is possible that Fair Share Housing Center could just try and file an objection to everybody's number at one point, but I don't see anybody objecting to that number. Kendra, I don't know if you disagree.
Yeah, my understanding is there's a presumption of validity when you accept the DCA number. So I would be hard pressed to think that anybody would object to it at this point.
And Kendra,
Super helpful, Lynn.
I was just going to ask you, could you go through those briefly, the processes for adjusting down, whether it's
Sure. So the adjustment down, the realistic development potential, which we've started that process. We did a vacant land analysis a couple months ago. We had some committee meetings, affordable housing committee meetings. What I believe your RDP is going to be for the 4th round is 0. We've gone through all of the potential vacant parcels. They're as we see in the DCA number, the land capacity factor, there isn't any developable land. So we're going to be dealing with a downward adjustment from 92 to 0 RDP. 92 doesn't go away. If you guys are familiar with the 3rd round, it still goes into unmet need, and then we have to deal with unmet need, which we can talk about as we start to plan after you you establish a number and you get a blessing from the program on that number. And then once that happens, what I'm telling most of my clients is that mid-February, end February, we start to then gear up to put the housing element fair share plan together and kind of release that for public review sometime in March, April.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Mayor, you want to entertain a resolution? Or a motion?
Yeah, if someone has a motion to make, absolutely, on resolution 2025-40.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
Yes.
Pimentelli,
yes.
Chloe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. Thank you. Now moving along to the public comment portion of our meeting. If you have a public comment, please use the raise hand call button. Speak your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Allison, is there anyone with a public comment?
We only have 2 attendees. Nobody's hand is up.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn at 5:55 PM?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Good night, Fairhaven.
Thanks, William. Thanks, Kendra.
Yeah.
Have a
Good
good night,
night.
everybody.
Right.
Night.
Right.